Welcome to the public lecture on 70 years of disease control and prevention in China by Professor George Gao. We are privileged to be hosting Professor Gao's visit at our school as HKU's Centennial Distinguished Chinese Scholar of the Year. May I provide a brief introduction of Professor Gao's decorated career in global public health. He is the Director General of China's CDC, Dean of Salford Medical School of University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, Vice President of NSFC, and Foreign Associate of U.S. National Academy of Sciences. Professor Gao obtained his Doctor of Philosophy degree from Oxford and did his postdoc work in both Oxford and Harvard, with research interests in envelope viruses, molecular immunology, and virus ecology, and with his work expanding to public health policy and global health strategy in recent years. He has published over 500 referred papers, including papers in Cell, Nature, Science, and Lancet. Before proceeding to the next section, we would like to take a big photo of Professor Gao and the audience to commemorate this special occasion. Thank you, everyone. May I now invite Professor Keiji Fukuda, Director of HKU Global Health of HKU School of Public Health, to give some welcoming remarks before we call upon Professor Gao. Professor Fukuda, please.
So thank you, Myra. Welcome, everybody. We've had, I think, an incredible week this week, and this is sort of the pinnacle of the week. We're going to get to hear George talk about his thoughts on public health. But before we get there, let me also add a few words about George. You know, or I think I'll call him Gao Fu, because this is really the way that he introduced himself to me once. Now, Gao Fu is being honored here as the Hong Kong University's Centennial Distinguished Chinese Scholar. And let me tell you a little bit about why he is being honored in this way. When the announcement came, when the call came about who we might want to consider, and this went out to the university, Professor Pierres called me and he said, we should nominate Gao Fu, we should nominate George, he's the natural person. And I thought about it for about 1/2 of a second. He said, exactly, this is the right thing that we should do. And so this is partly because, George is just such a distinguished scientist. You heard a lot about his credentials. George was born in Shanxi. He was going to become a veterinarian when he was a young guy, but decided to study smaller things and became a virologist. He has done an incredible amount of scientific work, and as was noted, he's published over 500 papers. He's gotten over 25 patents. He's worked on 10 books or 10 book chapters, and he is known worldwide for his work, and much of his work has been fundamental in terms of virology, particularly on the how influenza viruses go into cells. He gave a talk on this yesterday, a scientific talk on virus receptors and the entry of influenza viruses. So that was part of the reason, simply because he is such a distinguished scientist. But also, George is really a bridge between public health in China and within China and with the rest of the world. So he has been, for his career, a leading figure in controlling infectious diseases within China. But I think that he's taken this overseas. In 2014, he personally led a team which went from China to West Africa to work on Ebola in that massive global effort to deal with that outbreak. And so George was head of the Chinese mobile laboratory testing effort. And so this is something for any of us who dealt with the Ebola episode know what it meant to actually go to West Africa and to be there for this effort. But more recently, he has been spearheading China's efforts really to build the science and technology infrastructure in the developing world, and particularly in Africa. And so he's expended a lot of time working with African countries, working with African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and really spearheading these efforts. But the other part of the reason why we really wanted to get him here is that he has simply been a long-term friend and colleague to the university. I mean, he's very well known to many of us here individually. He's worked closely with people like Professor Malik Pierres, Professor Guan Yi. He's worked closely with our dean, Gabriel Leung, in terms of investigations in science over many years. And so we simply wanted to recognize somebody that we see as a close friend and colleague. But also, for any of you that have known George personally, he's kind of a larger-than-life figure. I mean, George just brings zest and energy into any room, and so when he is part of a project, he really energizes it. He brings a kind of impetus that a lot of us can just admire. So in the next several minutes, George is going to give us a talk on 70 years of disease control and prevention in China. And then after George gives his talk, what we're going to do is we're going to open this up to discussion with the audience here. So as you listen, whatever questions that you have for George, you're going to have a chance to ask him. And so, Gao Fu, can I invite you to the stage?
I have my timer here. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, KG, for your wonderful introduction. And also thanks to KG and Malik, my two nominators for these distinguished Chinese scholars. I'm very honored. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, to have this honor, and also to present this open lecture. So this open lecture, when I give a talk, you might think, well, you know, this is the routine practice you hold on because you guys copied most of the system from the UK. That's, you know, trivial. To be honest, I was also trained, like KG said, in the UK. I did my PhD there, postdoc there, I worked there. So for the UK system, maybe nowadays you look at it, it's nothing for the disease control and prevention. But the message I want to deliver to you, think about 70 years ago, what China looked like 70 years ago. With these great achievements for the disease control and public health, from life expectancy in 1949, 35, to official data 2016, 76.6. Now in Beijing, Shanghai, Suzhou, just name a few, big cities, 85, 86. Of course, a little bit less than here in Hong Kong. But that's the question you would ask. How did we achieve such a great number? How did we achieve these great achievements from the, I use the word, the good English word, scratch? 35. That's the number you were calling yourself a few years ago, even now, in some poorest African country. The country I'm being, so many. Name it. So I like Sierra Leone. They just finished their, 50 years ago, finished their civil war. So that's like the situation. How China went through the whole path for this disease control and prevention and control and public health. And how can we really learn something from what we achieved from China? Like KG said, can we do something in Africa? Can we do something in the Belt and Road Initiative countries, like some area in Southeast Asia countries, to do this disease control and public health? This is exactly what I'm going to discuss with you. I have over 100 slides. I'll try to pick up the most important one to discuss with you. If I missed anything, KG already made an announcement. We will have open discussion. I'm happy to discuss anything. You think, okay, George, can you go back? I missed that slide. We can move back, have an open discussion. So here it is. I put everything in Chinese to make sure, but I speak in English, so this is very good. So you try to also simplify the Chinese. This is the 70 years for the disease control and prevention in China. Believe me, that's a Chinese character. There it is. What's the problem? Did I do anything? Oh, I did. Sorry, I wrote. So when people ask, so where are we now? How many diseases we are facing? What's the most important disease are we facing? I would say, last year I was invited by the journal called Cell. Can you write something for special issue, Microbial World, to say what kind of emerging infectious disease we are facing? It's attacked for the human beings. What can we do? I wrote something from A, avian influenza virus, to Z, Zika. So this is the virus. Then I ask myself, and also I deliver the message. What can we do? Keep doing surveillance. Keep doing basic research. Make sure your facility, your core facility, and your capacity build up. Then you will be ready. You'll be relaxed yourself whenever you have any re-emerging viruses or pathogens. I'll give you an example. We had a SARS, but we also had a MERS in China. SARS, everybody knows. The loss is there. But MERS, we get it cracked down for the MERS. I will give you an example for that. So, which virus is the most important or most serious problem? I always think flu. So this is why, in addition, I'm doing some research, like Malik, everybody sitting here, they are doing some influenza virus. I'm also doing some public understanding of science. This is why I wrote a book. It's called, that's in Chinese, but it means influenza virus, unavoidable enemy. So this is a storytelling book for the public understanding of science, because I think flu always the major, most severe virus for. Okay, you can still see something. You look at this is seasonal flu, H1N1, H2N2, H3N2. Then, meanwhile, you have so many influenza virus always there, even influenza virus. So while you are talking about this, you have roughly about 14 viruses there. And just suddenly, and early last year, we have another one called H7N4. So there's H7N4, but it's a sporadic, it's a single case. So the most important virus, I would say, is influenza virus. And then Zika. Data came. Zika is an old virus. It was discovered in 1947 in Africa, but never been a problem. But suddenly, it's a problem all over the world, starting in 2015 in South America, and then spread to China and mainland China to Hong Kong, everywhere, in 2015 and 16. So this is what we are facing. I just give you to show we are facing a lot of problems, but how China achieved where we are now. I say for China, for the infectious disease control or any disease control, I would say what happened before 1949, and then what happened during we can planned economics, and then we can the so-called open door policy, starting from 1978. And then we had SARS outbreak, 2003. So, and what happened after SARS outbreak? This is what I would go through with you. So, now, 1949, I mentioned the life expectancy is 35 at that time. That time, for the disease, we have cholera, plague, we have schistosomiasis, we have malaria, we have all this disease there. So this is the Chinese. I give you example. The disease is always there. Schistosomiasis is a very, very serious problem in there. Where is in South China? You look at South China here, it's a very serious problem. Schistosoma is always a problem over there, but we get it down. Why and how? Because then, at that time, we have a central anti-epidemic corps that was established after the civil war in China. So that made a great job. Of course, we also have the infectious disease control law. It was issued in 1955. So this is, I give you some good example. Don't forget, China is such a big country. So any achievement, not that easy. Any achievement, if you want to share for everybody, divided by 1.4 billion, it's tiny. So this is why, made such a country 1/5 of the population in the world. You made them, rich enough to survive. That's not an easy job. So this is what we can. So what kind of, can we have some so-called China experience or Chinese experience help to get into that stage? What we call, look at the Chinese, I'll explain in English. We call it in Chinese, it's called patriotic health campaign. Patriotic health campaign. It doesn't matter what it's called, but the most important thing, what we have done here, I call it all in all for disease control and prevention. In Chinese, 群法群控, all in all. That because at that time it's very important. So get everybody understand why you want to do the public health, why you want to do disease control. This is why I call it all in all. That means 群法群控. Get everybody involved. That's very important. And also 联防联控. Coordinated efforts. So that kind of effort, we call it in Chinese here. Here's the Chinese, if you can read the simplified Chinese, but it's called Patriotic Health Campaign. So get everybody involved. So this is the way, what we have done for the disease control and prevention in China. So there's a call for so-called four pests control. It's rats, it's mosquitoes, flies, and it's cockroaches. So this is exactly what we've done. Though it's called in Chinese four pests, it means everything. So this is what, exactly what we have done. As I said, maybe when I talk about this, if you have a British background, you say, well, that's nothing. But you have to think back when we have the new China, what it looks like at that time. So this is why it's so important. Think about what we have done, what we did. So all of this we have done, at least we need a coordinated campaign. And then through this time, we have all these different kind of names. But now, we came to we call it healthy city. So now it's a healthy city plan. It's in China. It's everywhere. That's really like, what you are doing is a community medicine, community health, and community medicine. So this is the prevention. We always put this on prevention as priority. So when I give a talk, when we have this BNR initiative, people ask me, I made a joke. So Donald Trump want American priority first. I say public health first. Take the public health, disease control as priority. Now in the world, because the virus has no passport, there's no border, no visa need for travel. The virus will travel freely. So this is why I keep telling people, this is what we see, prevention first. This is the whole principle. So we did all this, from the principles and strategies, we all do this. So what's kind of the work we have done? I call this one is a, campaign. Again, we call this a disease control, public health campaign. Get everybody involved. This is what we have done. Now, I'll give you an example. The good example is the malaria. Now in China, starting from 2017, we don't have any more malaria, local malaria. We have malaria, they're all imported cases. If you go to China, Beijing, Shanghai, you think Beijing, Shanghai is New York. But remember, go and visit Yunnan. Go and visit my hometown, Shanxi. in some areas. It's still, some areas is as poor as you would see the poorest village in Africa. But how did we achieve this? So this is very important. This is the method we have done, especially the work we have done in the border with Myanmar. Remember, border with Myanmar and Burma. So this is the area. It's very hard, even nowadays. So when I took the position as Director General for China CDC, I spent a few days in this area. I tried to figure out how did we do the disease control in this area. Even if you have a good measure, you did a brilliant job here in Yunnan province. But if Burma, Laos, and Vietnam, if they didn't do well, what can you do? So this is why we call it a coordinated effort. So in this border, we spend a lot of time. We also spend some money here. You coordinated this, buffer state in that region. That really contributes a lot. So this is why, I want to say, this one we call it, the Chinese called 联防联控. I put this one in English, means coordinated effort. Not only coordinated effort inside China, but also coordinated with the buffer state or buffer region in your border. So that's very, very important for the malaria. And this is give you a good example what we have from our statistics. There's the malaria cases here. Then, through the time now, 0. Starting from 2017, we don't have any local malaria anymore. Good example for Yunnan province. This is the example for Yunnan province. You look at the figure. The Yunnan province, 2016, 0. So that's very, very important. And then plague. When you think about a plague, for the plague control, so this is what the so-called 4 pests. When you say those 4 pests, including the rats, so this is give you some example of what we have done. And until now, look at the figure here. So also we have nothing, for the plague. Though we have nothing, but suddenly, remember, there's some plague in Madagascar. Remember, in 2016, so we set a team there. This is my colleague, and he went there. Well, in China, a lot of people think, why you want to do the job in Africa? Think about it. There's no border, I said, for any disease. There's no passport or visa for any pathogens. This is exactly what happened. We sent my colleague there, and then suddenly we have one traveler from China who caught the plague in Madagascar. So this is exactly, anywhere nowadays, for any diseases, it could be a problem for you sitting here because no border for any diseases. This is the example for the plague. Now, this is how we organize for the leprosy. For all this leprosy, and now our target is elimination of this one in 2020. We'll have no more leprosy here. So this is exactly the numbers you can see. We start from here. You look at the number, even in 1959, 1974, we have so many, but now in 2040, just a few. So this will give you a whole number, and this is the strategy what we have done for the cholera, even for the cholera. So cholera is nothing there. For the cholera here, what I want to say, in my own opinion, for the disease control. So people usually, whenever I give a talk, people, can you give a list? So which one is more important for the public health and for the disease control? I usually name number 1, clean water. Think about it. You are sitting here, you have a bottle of water. So clean water is related to cholera. Clean water is related to many viruses. First, clean water. Infectious disease control is the second. Always, though I myself, I'm working on virology, I always think pathogen control is second. What's the third? Third one, self-control. Self-control or community health. That's very, very important. Think about if you cannot do the self-control, you are a heavy smoker, or you are a heavy drinker, or you even is a drug user. What happened? You can see the life expectancy will reduced. The good example is in the US, the Midwest, some area. The life expectancy reduced a little bit for recent years. Why? Fentanyl. Fentanyl can easily prepared. If you are graduate student even, you can prepare the fentanyl in your garage. And then you can send this by the parcel to the US in the Midwest, some area. So this is why you remember when Trump visited China, he talked to our president, President Xi Jinping. So can you help control the fentanyl inside China? Make sure no one would prepare this, no one would, ship this, deliver this to the US. So this is why the third one is self-control. Water, infectious disease, and self-control, all this. So this is a good example for cholera. This is also give you an example, we got down no more cholera in 2017. And schistosomiasis, this is what we have. Think about it, this is some picture I dig out from the files. This is a very good example for One Health strategy. For the schistosomiasis, if you want to control this, you need One Health strategy. So, and I showed you earlier, this is the disease where you get it from there. It's well controlled. There's some also new technology. So this is what we are doing, black plastic film. You think the plastic film is very important for you to have fresh vegetables during the winter, but this is also very important. This is something we are doing something with the DFID, in collaboration with the DFID, in collaboration with the Public Health England. We are doing this job in Tanzania, in Africa countries, to set up this to control the snails for schistosoma control. Let's give you some examples. This is what we are doing at the moment. So, water, clean water is very, very important. If you go and visit Africa, you will have a really feeling why clear water is very important. This give you examples. This is what we have done for clear water, and this is the how the percentage of the water improvement in the rural area in China. You see this increased from 2001 to 50. So we are still on our way to have a clear water. And vector control. Vector control is very important for so many infectious diseases, mosquitoes, and also the natural disaster. And this is a good example of this is the Haiti. When Haiti had an earthquake, they have a cholera outbreak. And also the control for a lot of, we call it, a lot of activities in China. So this is exactly what happened. So what kind of a Chinese experience? First, we have an infectious disease control law, and we have the very good organization. Let me tell you how we organize the disease control and public health in China. Here it is. So we have state council, and we have, used to be called Ministry of Health. Now we call it National Health Commission. Then we have provincial, prefectural, and county, 4 levels. These 4 levels, we have 4 levels of CDC system. County and prefectural, provincial, and national. So this is where we are. So for the national, we are doing standard. We are doing the norm. So we establish the norm and standard to guide this. And also, we have the support, as I said, coordinated effort. So these 4 hierarchy system is very important for China. Surveillance. So the whole surveillance, I'll give you an example, the surveillance system we established, I'll show you. The whole information system in China CDC. Nowadays, is for us, we have the general centralized data center. It's in China CDC. Here, all those data, especially for the infectious disease control, I will know within hours whether or not we have an outbreak, even in a small village. So this is how we got this, the whole system. So here you can see, whenever you found, by law, you have to report any suspected infectious disease cases. If you have anything, so before we need 5 days, but nowadays only 2 hours. So within 2 hours, me sitting in front of my office, I will know whether or not we have new cases. A good example, I will show you how we called the MERS case in China. So this is what I'll give you an example. We are now calling for the toilet revolution. So remind everybody, we have this toilet day. So that's November 14th, 19th. Don't forget about this. November 1st is the influenza World Flu Day, but here's the World Toilet Day. So don't forget about this. So again, I have to go further quickly for this. And also tropical disease control. Tropical disease control in general, all these parasitic disease. So we have an institute in Shanghai. It's called Institute of Parasitology. So we always give you, some of the examples for this. So what we are doing here at the moment, dengue is getting so serious. So we are doing a lot of work trying to establish a system, information system for dengue. So this is the major work we are doing. Also chronic disease, and this is where we have a model system for the chronic disease, and also we try to introduce this 4P. Everybody's talking about participatory, preventive, or predictive, and personalized medicine there. Now I want to come to see the vaccine-preventable disease. So give you some very good example. You see the curve. This is we not only eradicated the smallpox, also eliminate the polio in China. Generally speaking, this is all the vaccine-preventable diseases. You see, it's declined very quickly. Good example is Hep B. Hepatitis B used to be the national disease in China. In my age, more than 10% hepatitis B positive. Now, with the effective vaccination, we have 0.3% for any child under 5. You see that a big achievement for this. This hepatitis B is a good example. However, whenever you are talking about this, I want to go back for the immunization program. Though in China, the vaccination started even in 1919. When you go back, the first vaccination injection is in 1919. But we introduced the national immunization program, compulsory immunization program in 1978, only in 1978. Before that, it's always optional. So this is why the whole process. Here I give you some examples. You can say EV71, and also hepatitis B and hepatitis E. All this. Give example. But now, when you think hard, when you give all this, whenever I give a talk, I like to give the younger generation here, remind you, though we learn a lot from the UK, from the US, but why in China we lost our chance to do some innovative or creative work? I want to use this vaccine development as an example. Also a joke. Hope you get my humor. So vaccine and vaccine development. What happened? Here's smallpox. Here's China. Go and read some literature. In some literature, my colleagues usually very proud to say, in China, we try to prevent smallpox by doing this. Use a bamboo tube to blow. Remember, if you know, when you blow something, in Chinese, it means tree. Understand me? Blow something, in Chinese means tree. The Chinese, 2,000 years ago, we all started to practice this, but we missed the real science there. And in the UK, here's a Jenner. Jenner found, the vaccine or he found Jenner tried to eject instead of the human varicella, and he eject from the cow, vaccinia. So he developed the whole technique. This is the base for immunity or immunology. Yesterday I gave a talk, I talked something about the, Jenner immunology. So that's the basis. So I want to remind the younger generation how Chinese missed this discovery, scientific discovery. We have this, go anywhere, you will see this. But this is the technology, it's the current immunology. With that, WHO announced in 1980 eradication of smallpox and elimination in China, Hong Kong, of course, polio. Why we missed this? That's my thought. We tried to blow by using bamboo tube, but we only tree. We are still tree. Tree means blow. Also, tree could means exaggerate. Remember that? Yeah? But we haven't introduced the anatomy. We didn't understand the blood circulation. We still think elephant is elephant. For the modern medicine, medical science, they try to use anatomy. The reductionist, they try to dissect the body. We Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, we never dissect the body. We still, what I usually say, though modern medicine call us to open our eye to see the medicine, but we still prefer close our eye to see that's a traditional medicine. I hope you got my point. But now, so why I want to say that, sitting here, we have so many younger generation. You need to do some creative work based on reductionist. And this is why we missed this. So that's, I'm talking in a different way. If you have another immunologist who will say, we are so proud that the Chinese also started here, 1,000 years ago. But by the end, where's the science? The science is here, general immunology. I hope you got my point. So this is what, STD, all this, and give you example. However, human behavior is very important for the disease control. I told you self-control. This gives you an example for the HIV transmission. Now, HIV is mainly from here to here. 96% is sex transmitted. And you can say 90, almost 20% MSM. So this is, something to do with the human behavior change. And after the SARS, I call this one as after SARS. After SARS, we built up so many buildings. You go and visit all the local cities, provincial cities, they have beautiful beauty. But yet, we need more talents, more professional, expert work there. So this is what happened in the SARS. So why we have the SARS? Because before 1978, we have our planned economy system. So everything works so well, especially for the STD. But starting from 1978, we have a free economy system. We forgot about public health. We forgot about capacity building up or facility. And then we have a SARS. So now, this is why, in my opinion, this is why we have SARS. After SARS, we have the new building. But now, we are lacking the expert. We are lacking the talents there. So this is why I not go anywhere. I'm calling for this. So this is why, this is what we have the direct support. This is what I'm tell you the reporting system in China, starting 50 and now 204. The system is very good. This is our centralized system. And 5 days reporting time now is 2 hours. I already mentioned this for you. And emergency response. For the emergency response, good example is MERS. In 2015, after SARS, you cannot say there's no virus knock the door at China. Yes, there's one virus called MERS. MERS knocked at the door in China in 2015. One case from South Korea. The guy from South Korea and his father was hospitalized. He visited his father. He got the fever, but he didn't want to travel. He traveled through Hong Kong. Stop over here, from South Korea. Stop over Hong Kong directly by bus, transferred to Huizhou. Single case. So we were noticed by WHO. I give you all this time point. We were noticed this time, 9:45. We were noticed. WHO noticed us, 9:45. Immediately, 10:50, Guangdong Provincial CDC sent a team there. So 2 hours later, they found the patient. Unbelievable. So can you imagine, if we didn't find this patient, we could be in trouble. I said, well, when I give a talk for this as an example, people say, well, MERS is different. Remember, how MERS is different. Think about what happened in South Korea. 186 cases, 39 death cases. 186 with 39. That's the number. So this is it's very important. This is the emergency response in China at the moment. It's very good. This is the time point. They go through there. Then we work so hard. We get the poor guy recovered from the infection and no transmission in China. That gives you a very good example for that. So now we have so many reference labs in China. This is, Japanese encephalitis, flu, and polio, and measles. This is the capacity we are building up, and this will give you a good example for the WHO flu reference lab. And after I'll give you an example for the MERS. After 2003, we have H5N1, H1N1. We have pneumonia virus. Recently, we have Alonsan virus. We have H7N9. So the virus is always there, but we did succeed to get it all this done. And now, what happened here? Now we have some AIDS and syphilis and coccidia to come back. But remember, we always have all these new viruses coming out. We are facing this problem. Why we have all these problems? Because of the travel. Again, it's human behavior. So this will give you an example. For so many years we have got so many. SARS, the Zika is a problem, and now we are in a process to try to get the polio down to be eradicated. It's also eliminated. So we are sending so many people, so many staff. I sent my staff working in so many different countries. I still have people now working in Sierra Leone. They are working in Uganda. I'm going to send a team to South Sudan. I also have someone working in Tanzania, and there we have someone working in Zambia. So we have so many people working there. So this you give example. What we have done, what we are doing in Sierra Leone. So this is why what we are doing. So we are trying to attract some more money from the government. So this is we are still, have some problem there. But finally, what I would call One Health strategy to get all this work done. So we need, this is the Chinese means One Health. So we need someone working on the environment, someone working in the agriculture sector, someone working in the health sector to work together. So only in this way we get all this disease done. I have a few slides to remind you. Emerging pathogens. From the very beginning, I show you I was asked, surveillance and basic research. The question would be, why do we have so many emerging viruses? And how do we get so many emerging viruses? What can we do? I gave a talk already, used this slide yesterday. If you did come for my professional talk yesterday, it's okay. But otherwise, I show you my opinion. Because globalization, human behavior changes, global changes, climate change, all this, and the human behavior change, look at your short, and the human behavior changes for travel. So all this. Now, why is that? Because the virus, they are looking for a new host, a new home. So the virus is typical virus called, everybody knows, this is the notorious virus feature for Ebola. So they find a virus receptor here. If they don't get into the cell, they need a virus receptor. So this is getting into the not specific cofactor, get into the cell, they find a specific receptor here. So this is a specific receptor, it's APC1. And the virus has a specific monovalent protein. So this protein will be processed. Look at this, processed, remove a little bit, then bind to the receptor. After binding to the receptor, and conformational change of the protein and membrane fusion. Virus membrane, cell membrane, genetic material release. This is the virus. If you don't behave yourself, if we keep doing our own, don't care about the virus will try to adapt to the new host. Good example. When we were in Sierra Leone, so you have a index virus from Guinea, and you can see the virus is adapting to the new host, all these mutations. So this is the public talk I want to give you to show. So what can we do for the future? Behave yourself. Make sure, don't destroy all the forests, and don't change your behavior. Don't eat all those fresh, you like the fresh killed chickens. Meanwhile, you have AIV. So this is a general information I want to give you. Finally, that's my book, You Chinese. Influenza virus, unavoidable enemy. I hope you enjoy reading my book. And also, for the public understanding, welcome to visit Shenzhen 3rd Hospital with this Zika virus with antibody. That's a statue. Welcome, visit Shenzhen. And also, welcome to visit Beijing. I have a influenza virus statue. Yeah. So this is the campus of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Welcome to visit Beijing. So my lab is a neighbor of this statue. So here it is. HA, SOTR1NA, this is the virus. So welcome. The last message I want to deliver to you. Work hard for the science. Meanwhile, work hard to deliver your message to the public. If you are working hard as a scientist, you are working hard as officials, but if the public don't understand what you are doing, if the public don't understand the measures they should use, it's nothing. So this is why I put all this statue and the public understanding of the book. I'm doing this job. So both science popularization, public understanding are very important. Thank you. That's my message.
Thank you, Professor Gao, for the inspiring talk. Please be seated on the stage. The school has been hosting a series of roundtables with movers and shakers in global health, with Professor Fukuda as the moderator. May I now invite Professor Fukuda to join Professor Gao on stage for a quick roundtable discussion before we open up questions for the floor. Professor Fukuda, please.
You see, believe me. So I put the influenza virus like this. Influenza virus A, B, C, and D. So this is why it's a public understanding of science. It's a book. It's not a professional book. Are you going to learn? Are you going to speak Chinese?
Just to read your book. Definitely. So, George, let me ask you, so everyone, please get your questions ready. I will throw it open in a few minutes, but let me get us started. I think that you painted in the past 70 years that some huge gains have been made. The life expectancy has increased. Many of the infectious diseases that you've spent your life working on have been really brought under much greater control. We saw how the response to outbreaks is really accelerated, moving very quickly. So when you look ahead, what are going to be the next big gains for public health in China, and what are going to be the big challenges?
I think that's a very good question. When you think hard, China now is second largest economy in the world. In some big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Suzhou, Shenzhen, Canton, to name a few. The lifestyles and the economy and the society looks the same as Hong Kong, London, New York. So what are we going to face? I think we are going to, most of the cities, we are facing the same as you would face, i.e., after the whole genome sequencing. Remember that. So all the geneticists claimed the life expectancy for human beings 120. Have you ever heard about that? Hey, everybody sitting here, you should live for 120. Why, here the average is 87, Beijing 82, Suzhou 85.5. Why is that? Because we are facing some problem. That's the level of problem. That's the limitation of the understanding of size for everybody here. So this is why, foresee the future, 20 years, 50 years. I propose to my government, propose to some local government like Suzhou, why don't we try to set up some cohort study? I talked to Dr. Lam this afternoon. For the cohort studies, we need to identify some new factors, new parameters that limit our life expectancy up to 120. What is that? In my opinion, maybe something we don't know yet. Give you an example. Maybe some herpes virus infection. Same way, EBV, 80% or 90%, we were infected with that. Would that contribute once our immune system wanes during aging? Would that contribute something? We don't know. And also, happiness is very important. You want to make sure psychologically you are healthy. You're not just physically healthy. Everybody is talking about, healthy, physically healthy. But not many people talking about psychological health. Of course, from time to time, you start to care about your psychological health only if you found, or you yourself or someone else, have depression, right? What we should do, in my opinion, for the next 20 or 50 years, we should start to think about it. Think about it before you or anybody get to be depressed. So this is why I suggest, why don't we have an institute or academy? It's named Institute of Longevity and Happiness. Let's do research for happiness. So once you are happy, you will have a longevity. If you are not happy, Anyway, so that also suggested for the government. Whatever we know, we already know. Let me try to speak, like your former Minister or Secretary of Defense, Donald. He said, whatever you know, you already know. For which you can do that. That will help you for longevity. That's his see, right? Anyway, I've tried to copy that. But let's try to find out something else. Like yesterday, in a professional talk yesterday, I said, let's try to find the non-gender immunology. Here, let's try to find out some other parameters that limit our, thinking or imagination for the longevity.
George, I can see you're planning to live a very long life. So I do want to
120.
Yeah. So I do want to give everybody a chance. Does anybody have a question they want to ask?
Yeah, Smiley.
And we have a limited number of microphones, so we'll try to get them to you.
So thanks for a fantastic and inspiring lecture. You pointed out the control of malaria in China, but then, as you pointed out, you have the problem of borders with Myanmar and many other places where malaria is still a problem. So how do you cope with the reintroduction? And you talked about barriers. So how do you prevent reintroduction of malaria back into China in spite of the control measures in China?
I think that's a very good question. You cannot control anything imported. But I showed you that we have a buffer area. So for that buffer area, we have a team working together. The local CDC staff, they are working together with their local public health staff in the relevant countries like Vietnam, Burma, Laos. So we have something there that we are part of the buffer area. So far, that looks like it works very well. We always try to encourage the government, our government, to invest for that. From time to time, if you talk to people, they will say, well, that's not our territory. Why do you want to invest? I think that's the vision from the Chinese government, especially the local government. They realize we need this buffer area. I think that make a lot of difference. More importantly, because of this understanding, we have many lab people from those three countries. They are trained inside China, in the Yunnan provincial CDC. So if you go there, next time you go there, you will see. You can see in China side, looks so clean. I have a picture actually. I should next time show that picture. So clean, you would see any diseases or any vectors whatsoever. But the other side, you can't see the difference. But in my opinion, that's the reason for the local government investment. That's the reason for local CDC, their staff working together with the buffer area.
Yeah, Professor Gong, excellent talk and very inspiring to me. And I think I'm very glad you mentioned quite a few times about the water. I'm from Department of Civil Engineering in this university, and we work on the water treatment and water quality. I'm glad that we can contribute to the public health and infectious disease control. And also about the smallpox case, which you mentioned. And we Chinese people know sometimes it works, but we do not know why it works, so we miss the chance to have a very fundamental science finding. And that can supplement another example. It's also about water. We know back to the 1,000 years ago, we already, for Chinese people, they already know we need to boil water before we drink it, otherwise we get infected. But we don't know why it may work. Until then, about 160 years ago, during snow, found that the chloride can caused by the bacteria in the contaminated well water. So that's going to be another case. It's similar to the smallpox case. And also, as a water engineer, I want to know what could be a common about the further requirement about the water quality, especially when we face some new challenge like AMR, antibiotic resistance, and also some others like new virus in the environment. So would there be a comment on that? Thank you.
Okay, I think that's also a very good comment and also a very good question. As a virologist, I should be the one who should claim control of infectious disease is more important than anything else. Because my unique experience, I'm maybe, not many people would do that. I'm doing the basic research. So this is why I'm always touch those front scientific questions, virus entry, all this. However, I'm the one working in the lab. Also, I have done a lot field work. So when you go for the field work, the Director General DG in China, go to all this pro area, and then you also go to Africa. Then I changed my mind. So basic scientists go to the field, you realize clean water is more important than anything else. That's not an easy job. That's not an easy achievement to be achieved. So you need really hard work. And also that need to be aware by the government when you talk to the people even in Africa. So that's my experience. And some of them, they still didn't care about the water. But once you have this problem, water contaminations, all the disease here, like if you don't have the boiled water, you can't imagine. So this is why in my book we have broth experiment, Pasteur's broth experiment. That tells you the origin of the infectious diseases. So anyway, so from my own experience as a bench scientist, now I realize I go to the field. So you'll realize I'm going to ASM meeting in San Francisco in 3 days. I'll be there. ASM had a special panel discussion by addressing, encouraging some basic research scientists go to the field. So I was chosen as an example to talk about this.
Hello, I'm Vivian Wong, and I would like to ask about your hepatitis B vaccination strategies. I must give the background is that in Hong Kong U, we actually documented maternal fetal transmission of hepatitis B in our hospital, and our team actually was the first team that actually produced the immunoglobulin plus vaccine randomized control trial that was published in the early 1980s. Even now in Hong Kong, we have a problem of actually not being able to contain, despite the vaccination program, that the university entry students, they do not actually maintain the immunological status, and we are not sure whether indeed it's a lot of incoming, population that actually dilutes the population. So I noticed that you have achieved so well in controlling the incidence under the age of 5, as you've shown just now. So, I would be very interested to know how you did that, and also, what are your plans for subsequent monitoring?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. You also have roughly 10% of non-responder for HPV vaccination. That's already known. You said China. We don't know the reason yet. But so far, the number I told you, 43% for any child who's under 5. So that's a big achievement. The immunization program inside China and include the hepatitis B vaccination. That's compulsory. It's not optional. That means in China we call it the class 1 or category 1 vaccine. I think at first we have enough vaccine to be used. That's very important. Not like the influenza virus. From time to time we don't have enough. And second, we always try to modify the immune program. For example, if you have some non-responder, I think we try to increase a little bit of the percentage from non-responder into responder for the last 10 years by giving high dose. So usually you give like 25 microgram, and the high dose, we use 60 microgram. Looks like that really works. That for the last 5 and 10 years, we try to use that, it works. So in general, we are, still try very hard. Once you get 0.3%, but, to get you to be eliminated, it's still a lot of work. So I think we are still in the process to identify some other parameters.
Many thanks, Professor Gao, for this wonderful lecture. I'm particularly happy that we can hear from our virologists saying the importance of happiness, right? And that we do need to study happiness, and we are doing something on happiness. And I believe that, you say 70 years of disease control and prevention. I'm quite sure that people now in China today are certainly much more happier than 70 years ago. And when you do field visit, I believe that you will see a lot of people very happy, with the vaccination, with the clear water, with all these things. I think this is something very, very worthwhile. And of course, you mentioned about the need of cohort study to identify new problems, new unknown factors, many other unknown factors. So I think that we actually need cohort studies, which are very, very big. It should be super cohort study of 5 million people, 10 million people, or even 1 billion people. So do you think this is a dream, or do you think China can lead the way in this super cohort study so that we will be able to identify the unknown risk factors that you have mentioned? And maybe we can see the first human being living to 120 years who is a Chinese. Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Lam, it's a very good question as well. You're right. Happiness is more important than anything else. You keep yourself happy. So then you got everything. In terms of the cohort, it's possible because we have 1.4 billion people. We have the largest, so far still the largest. India, quite close, but not there yet. They are approaching to the same number what we have in China. So cohort study in China, in my opinion, is still new in mainland China. So we need to address this. I think in the future, as Vice President of National Science Foundation of China, I would really like to put some more money for the cohort study. And maybe this is why I told the local government to establish an institute for longevity and happiness. This is what I mean, to get a cohort, large cohort, like I talked to you this afternoon, super cohort. So by then, we might identify some factors or some parameters then to increase the longevity. So it's possible. Why don't you join us? Come to work in the mainland to get a super cohort.
Another question.
Hi, thank you for the really inspiring, awesome lecture. And my question is, how do you deal with anti-vaccination people? Because when I'm usually on news, I usually hear about people who refuse vaccinations and stuff. So I'm wondering, how do you actually deal with them? And how does it affect public health?
Say again, I didn't get your point. Sorry.
Anti-vaxxers, like anti-vaccination people who refuse.
Anti-vaccine campaign,
yeah.
those guys.
Yep. Just wondering, how do you deal with them, and how do you affect it?
In China, we also have someone who anti or against vaccination. There's always a population there. First, as I said, we have the law, infectious disease control law. So if you have a child, your mother, and that's compulsory, you got to get your child vaccinated because that's your duty or responsibility. Because you will put your kids into the kindergarten or the school. So you have to show the small book, the booklet, your child is vaccinated. So that's compulsory. So that's very important. That's by law. And secondly, I wrote this book. And we have so many people. They are working around in the community level. They talk to the mothers, parents. So, vaccination is very important. However, from time to time, as you know, we have, let's put this frankly speaking, in mainland China at the moment, from time to time, we have so many scandals about vaccine or vaccination. But that doesn't have any really side effect for the vaccination, for the quality of the China-made vaccines. So when you go back to all these, I call it so-called scandals, there are also a reason they're there. For example, one of them, I'll give you an example, it's just criminal. The guy who I bought one imported, maybe Sanofi-made vaccine, and the guy who injected me, the nurse, injected me with a homemade one. So would you think that's a vaccine problem? That's just a criminal. So the other guy injected the kids, and the parents found that's already expired expired vaccine. And the parent asked, please stop. This, look at the date, it's already expired. And then the nurse reported to the CEO of the hospital. The CEO of the hospital, he's so busy, he didn't care about this. And the nurse didn't get any order from a CEO. And then he vaccinated another kid. So, that's not a vaccine. That's the problem for that particular nurse. So, in general, we try to explain all those scandals to the public, and then people understand what was going on then. So this is why, in general, we don't have a very strong anti-vaccination campaign like you have in the US. We don't have Andrew Wakefield. We don't have a Trump who would stand up together in parallel with Andrew Wakefield. You see this picture, right? Donald, Andrew, they sit together. So generally speaking, in mainland China, it's not a serious problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for a good talk. My name is Janet, and I'm from Kenya. I work in London. And my question is, in your talk you mentioned about doing some work with African countries, Uganda, Tanzania, especially the Ebola response. And my question to you is, what approach are you taking this time that's different from what has been done before, that is going to ensure sustainability of the efforts you will have put in terms of preparedness for future epidemics?
Yeah, everybody is talking about preparedness. In China, so we always have this practice for the so-called preparedness. I showed you some slides. First, for the preparedness, I always think the one I wrote for cell. You need build up your capacity. This is exactly what we are doing. KG mentioned for Africa. So Chinese government commit ourselves. Our president promised in 2015 in South Africa. We are helping Africa Union to build up their Africa CDC. We will donate a building. China CDC, my staff now work on a plan for the capacity building. The headquarters will be in Ethiopia. So this is the preparedness inside China. We have, provincial, I showed you 4 grades, hierarchy system, CDC. We are helping Africa to build up their headquarters for Africa CDC. That's part of our preparedness. We are also helping Africa to have 5 regional lab, regional CDC in, West, South, East, and North Africa. So there. So this is a part of our preparedness. I think at the moment, I believe what was going on, what happened in China for the last 70 years, from the top leader, the regime, down to anyone, technicians, they are working for the disease to realize. So if you want to get disease done, you need to get prepared not only inside China, but also outside of China. I think that's the vision for the preparedness at the moment in China.
So everyone, we're getting pretty close to the end. I think we have time for maybe another question. Does anybody have another question? Professor Lin.
I'll take the opportunity. The advent of things like WeChat and Weibo in China, does it help the disease control effort, or is it a problem for the disease control effort? And how do you harness it in a positive way?
That's also a very good question. You will got all these good questions. Any communication tools, including this WeChat, to me, KG mentioned from the introduction, I'm still a scientist. I still do a lot of administration work WeChat does help me a lot. I always have those small groups to discuss all these disease control, scientific research. I have 2 students sitting here, and through WeChat. So WeChat does help a lot. For example, I have my staff working in Uganda. I have my staff working in Sierra Leone. I will get all those immediate message by WeChat. WeChat is so quick. WeChat always leave the record there, not like the message or phone call. If someone call you, I'm here, maybe someone calling me. It's quiet, so I couldn't get any message. But WeChat, the message is always there. You can always go back to review what kind of message you got. So I think WeChat does help a lot for the public health. I got something, for example, the day before yesterday from my staff working in Uganda. There's one case report in Uganda. I ask them, what was going then? Give me a briefing. And then they give me, and I read it. So now in my mind, I know what's going on there. So that's really, really helpful for these public health affairs. And also ask my colleagues in Sierra Leone. They are working in Sierra Leone. Like immediately. And that's no time difference. You ask, immediately we'll be back. So I think definitely it's a positive.
But what about the people who spread fake news?
Well, that's another good question. I'm involved in it's called an organization called CAST, China Association for Science and Technology, CAST. CAST is an organization. I'm sitting there. I just came back from the discussing about how we can prevent, how we can use all these experts, try to tell the people which one is fake, which one is real, which one is authentic. So as long as you organize those professional fighting back message, you are okay. So we had a discussion before I came here, or half-a-day meeting. I was a chair. Something like that. Someone say vitamin C can prevent you from influenza A infection. Is it true? So that's a question. And also, you give a lot of questions like this. And someone say you use those, the fungus. You remember the fungus with the caterpillar? 冬虫夏草, 头夏草, fungi, caterpillar. That's a traditional Chinese medicine. So that herb would prevent you from Ebola. A lot of things like this. So I give you an example for the public health. Then you have to stand up to say, okay. So as long as you organize something with, like you said, with some positive answers, positive questions, you always have this pro and con. But in general, how you manipulate. I use the word even manipulate or handle, those fake news.
Want to press further? Okay. No, George, I want to very much thank you. I think we've come to the end of our time. First, can we give a hand to...
Thank you for the enlightening sharing. Please stand for the souvenir presentation section. May we now invite Professor Fukuda to present the souvenir to Professor Gao. Thank you, everyone. This is the end of today's program. Thank you for participating and have a great evening.